Hi folks, Harry here, and today I'm going to be discussing some Stephen King books that I used to hate, but I now love. So before I get into this video, there's two things that I want to say. One, the response on my previous video has been absolutely fantastic. This has been my biggest spike in subscribers ever since the start of my channel, so thank you very much for that. And number two, 62% of people who watch my videos are not subscribed to the channel. So please make sure that you smash that subscribe button and turn on the post notification bell so you get notified every single time I upload a new video. But without further ado, let's get into some Stephen King books that I used to despise, but I now adore. So I'm going to start this list off with Mr. Mercedes. So Mr. Mercedes is the first book in a crime trilogy, and it follows a serial killer who drove a Mercedes into a crowd of people. But it also follows a detective named Bill Hodges who is trying to crack the case. I can't really remember why I used to hate this book, and actually, I never really liked the rest of the trilogy. I was a massive fan of the second book, Finders Keepers, but for some reason this book didn't do it for me the first time that I read it. But now, looking back on it, I can appreciate that this book did so well. First of all, setting up the main killer. Second of all, setting up the characters of Bill and especially Holly. Holly Gibney is one of my favourite Stephen King characters to date. And this book is also just so powerful as a crime novel. You have an intelligent killer, you've got an intelligent detective, and you've got an absolutely fantastic concept. All of these factors made up a pretty good book, and I genuinely do not understand why I hated it so much. So I absolutely love it now, so I've definitely changed my opinions on Mr. Mercedes. So while we're on the topic of Mr. Mercedes, I'm going to talk about The Outsider. So The Outsider is not a direct sequel, but takes place after the Bill Hodges trilogy. So this book follows a detective called Ralph Anderson as he is trying to solve a crime involving the brutal murder of a 10-year-old boy. For the first 300 pages or so, I really enjoyed this book. It was the last 200 pages that really disappointed me because they undermined the absolute genius that this book could have been if it went in the path that we expected. But it didn't go in the path that we expected, and this book definitely fell flat because of one thing that I'm not going to spoil for you. So I kind of just told myself that I really didn't like this book. But again, looking back on it, I can appreciate just how powerful this book really is. The villain, even though it is quite underwhelming, is so cool. And I don't understand why I hated this villain so much. I mean, I do understand, but it just means something completely different to me now. Ralph is such an amazing character, and again, Holly Gibney in this book is even funnier, even more fantastic. She's just such a fantastic character. But yeah, I love The Outsider now. It's not quite in my top 10, but I do massively respect it for what it did. So next up I'm going to talk about two books that I'm going to group together, and these are books 1 and 4 in the Dark Tower series. First of all, I'm going to talk about The Gunslinger. In case you don't know what the Dark Tower series is about, it follows a gunslinger called Roland and his quartet, which is a group of people who are destined to be together as they go on this journey to find a mysterious black tower. This first book, for me, feels really weak. It still does, but now I can just appreciate it so much more now that I've continued on with the series. And I'm so thankful that I stuck with this series, even though I didn't massively like the first book. But now, I have got a newfound respect for the Gunslinger, because there are so many parts of the Gunslinger that crop up again later on in the series, and you think, whoa, this happened in the first book and it's appearing now. And I absolutely love when books do that. Another author that does that really well is Sarah J. Maas. Her books are behind me there. And in her works, bits that appeared in the first few books massively contribute towards the later books in her series, and it's just absolutely fantastic. That's something that Stephen King does really well too in The Dark Tower. So there are certain lines, certain concepts, certain ideas that first appear in The Gunslinger that crop up later on in the series. When you read this book for the first time, you might feel like it falls a little bit flat, but I massively encourage you to carry on with the series even if you don't like the first book, because first of all, it gets so much better, but two, you will massively appreciate this book so much more once you've carried on with the series and you return to the ideas that were first brought up in this first book. But now I'm going to talk about Wizard and Glass. Wizard and Glass is the 4th book in the Dark Tower series, and the reason why I never used to like this book is because book 3 was when the journey really started. It was like the first book was like a prologue, second book was introduction to the characters, third book, they're on the journey. Book 4, the story carries on for about 50 pages, and then it tells an 800-page backstory that just pauses the story just so you learn a little bit about the main character's past. At the time, I thought that this was so unnecessary, and I still kind of do. But similar to The Gunslinger, I have a newfound respect for this book. This book has such brilliant world building, such brilliant characters, a fantastic concept, a brilliant villain in Rhea. And overall, this makes a fantastic fantasy book that is really enjoyable. So I flew through this book because I thought it was entertaining, but I just didn't think it was necessary. But now I think that the entertainment aspect massively overshadows the unnecessary aspect. This book is fantastic. I love it so much more now, and I loved the way that it resolved the ending of the third book, which ended on a cliffhanger, and I absolutely loved the way that it was solved. And I also loved the ending of this book and how it led into Wolves of the Colour. And I think that this book, looking back on it now, was a lot more necessary than I originally thought. So yeah, Wizard and Glass. So finally, I'm going to talk about the book that inspired me to make this video, and that is Christine. You know something really strange? I used to hate Christine with a burning passion. So this book follows a teenage boy called Arnie as he basically falls in love with this 1958 Plymouth Fury that the original owner called Christine. This car turns out to literally be haunted and takes over his entire life and ruins his friendships. I thought that this book was so slow, there were so many parts of it that I thought were boring and unnecessary, and I just really had a terrible reading experience of this book. And I always used to say that John Carpenter's movie adaptation was far superior to the book. But now, looking back, because I haven't read this since, I think that the book and the movie are actually equal. I think where this book massively succeeds is the tone. It gets the tone spot on for a haunted car tale. But yeah, I absolutely love this book now. I am so impressed with Stephen King with this book and how he managed to create something so fantastic out of the concept of a haunted car. Something that Stephen King does really well is he takes something that we love and converts it into something that we are terrified of. And cars are one of those things. This book is really long, it's about 740 pages, and I used to think that that was a bad thing. But this book has so much to offer, so much character work, because something that Stephen King does really well is writing about a character's descent into madness. We've seen this done with The Shining before, and we know that it is Stephen King's expertise. So seeing this with Arnie is just brilliant, and I absolutely love Christine now. That's going to be it for this video. Comment below if there's any books that you used to hate by Stephen King, or not, just by any author, that you now love, because I would really like to know which books you have changed your opinions on over the years. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big fat thumbs up, and please remember to subscribe for more bookish content from me. All of my social media links are in the description below, and I will see you next time for another video. Goodbye.